Hi, everyone. This is Elliot Jacobson, and I am here today with Brandon James, who is a long-term advantage player and writer in the casino genre. So he knows a whole lot about a whole lot of stuff, and I am excited to interview him a little bit today. So greetings. Glad to have you here, Brandon.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity of having me on your channel.
I'm overjoyed. So just to get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background, your childhood, where you grew up, anything you want to share?
Okay, so I grew up in semi-rural Ohio. I would say when it comes to gambling, I started from a very young age. One of the first games I learned was 5-card draw poker. Usually deuces were wild. You go into the elementary school, kids got a little extra pocket change. It was my job to take some of that from them, but not by way of cheating, just by how well do most 9-year-olds play 5-card draw poker. I played it substantially better than they did. And I would play 500 rummy against my dad for nickels. You know, I would take my allowance money. I could gamble it against him, which he tried to keep the stakes pretty low. I'd have liked them a little higher. I was pretty good at hiding what sets and what straights I was trying to make.
So I also, as a young kid, had an affinity for gambling. I actually had a casino in my garage when I was 10 years old and would take the neighbor's allowance. So maybe this is something about future advantage players that we start at a very young age. But why don't you just tell us, what is the very first advantage play in the casino world that you remember making?
Well, the very first, I would tend to focus more on like machine advantage play for this because I'd say it's most relevant to what I'm doing now. And strangely enough, the first one wasn't actually in a casino. It was on the Pace-O-Matic Tic-Tac Fruit games, which were the quote-unquote games of skill that at one time before they were made illegal appeared frequently in the state of Ohio. And there's a button on those, just like the PA Skill games now, that are also manufactured by Pace-O-Matic, where you would hit next puzzle and you could literally see if the next spin was going to be a winner or not.
Oh, no kidding.
No, yeah, they have those right now. You could go to 7-Eleven and play it right now if you wanted to, but you wouldn't find anything because I've already been there today.
Well,
so you hit the next puzzle button.
Yeah, very interesting observational way of just noticing things in your environment that are beatable. And I think, you know, advantage players sort of have that. They have those eyes to look at everything as an opportunity. You know, it's not just, oh, I'm going to be a blackjack card counter. It's going to be everything I see is an opportunity out there. So, when you talk about machine play, I think that you know a lot about that. Is there anything in particular you want to talk about with beating slots or beating video poker or anything like that?
Well, I mean, video poker is arguably, if you're just looking at it in terms of progressives, and maybe you're looking at it in terms of, you know, Players Club card using the marketing system against itself, kind of, that's not so much different from a loss rebate in the table game world. You know, sometimes people look at machine players as being less skilled than table games players. I honestly don't know why that is. But one person that's heralded as a great advantage player is Don Johnson, given what he did with the blackjack loss rebates. Now, the key to a loss rebate is to realize the value of a loss rebate you actually have to lose, right? But suppose I know that a casino has a particular marketing program by which I can play a video poker game that has a theoretical hold of 2%. I can put $20,000 coin in on that video poker game. That's going to be an expected loss of $400 because 2% hold on the game. And I know that's going to get me $1,500 in free play over a period of 2 to 3 months. Now, I'm just using that as one example. I've seen bigger mail than that other people are doing in other areas. I'm talking about my area here. Over a period of 2 to 3 months, it's going to get me $1,500 in free play. Well, if I play that same $1,500 of free play on the same 2% holding video poker machine, I have an expected loss on that of $30. So you take the $1,470, you offset it against an initial expected loss of $400, that's $1,070 in profit. You know, the total amount of time that's going to take is probably going to be about 25 hours. So anybody who wants to can figure out the hourly on that. It's over $40.
Don't casinos catch on to you doing that? I mean, after you just go into a casino and sort of play a minimum number of hands and then cash out your free play and leave. And I mean, you can't really just do that time after time. Don't you actually have to generate theoretical loss that sort of establishes you as a loser before you get that on an ongoing basis?
Well, you've already established the theoretical loss. And you see, the way that you would do this, and for the purposes of this example, we're talking about you use your player's card and your player's card only, right? Now, some casinos, if you go in and you do not maintain a certain average daily theoretical loss, you're going to get, we call it, you get your card killed, right? So they take these offers that they've already extended to you, but they cut off your card because you didn't maintain the ADT that you had on first visit ADT. But your initial set of offers is going to be predicated upon first visit average daily theoretical. And many, if not most, casinos will not kill those offers. So you're going to have the ability to pick up all of those offers, to cycle through all of that free play, going on the appointed dates for it, without giving any additional play. So that's key to doing this. And you have to know that a casino, you don't have to give additional play. And another piece of information that you can know is that, you know, the cards reset for ADT purposes, right? So for some casinos, that's going to be 6 months. For some casinos, it's going to be a year. And aside from the fact that you won't get, you know, new member offers, obviously, you're not a new player's card member anymore. You were the first time, now you're not. But it's as if you never played there. It doesn't consider your reduction in theoretical from picking up all that free play and doing nothing else. So suppose a casino's 1 year. So 1 year from the last month you used the card, you could go in, run the $20,000 coin in on video poker, $400 expected loss, do it all over again. You're going to get the same offers.
So it sounds like you need a lot of cards then, because you need to do this on more than one card, or else it's not really a profitable. I mean,
well, it's still profitable. Like you're not going to do that and only that if you're only using one card. But, you know, if you're kind of a low level hustler type, and let's get one thing straight right now. In the case of me personally, I make as much money from writing about the casino world as I do from actually doing it, right?
Hold on. If somebody wants to read something you wrote, where would they go? Where could somebody find something that you wrote?
Right. Well, they could go to wizardofvegas.com. That's where most frequently my articles are published. They could go to wizardofodds.com. I have a few pages on there. I do a lot of, and actually wizardofodds.com, if people are interested in just how bad the lottery is, awful gamble, never do it. They could go on there. Well, I got to pop latest casino bonuses as well, which I sometimes write editorials.
Right.
And if you want to go to realmoneyaction.com for the U.S. casinos listings that details what all of the games are the casinos have, what the hotels are like, how many rooms, basically all of the information you could ever want to know about any land casino in the United States. And I have a couple states toward the back end of the alphabet that I have to do. And I haven't done Nevada yet, because obviously that's going to be an absolute monster.
So hang on a second.
Any other state, I wrote that, so go check it out.
So back to advantage play. So there is this idea called multicarding. So what, can you just give a brief explanation of what multicarding is?
Yeah, sure. I'll make some enemies. Well, see, I am not going to be
join the club. I mean, as far
as right. Yeah, you know all about having enemies.
Yeah,
in the advantage play world. Well, it's kind of like I said pre-interview. You know, I'm not going to get into too much of the nitty-gritty behind it, but it's exactly the same concept that I said when it comes to just having offers come in that you know are going to exceed your expected loss and doing it several times. But the one misconception that I wanted to clear up is I had watched a video of yours that basically insinuated sort of that it almost amounts to impersonation. That's not true at all. You're not, you could get arrested for a host could get arrested. It's happened, in fact, in Pennsylvania, for generating cards for people who don't exist, right? So none of that's going on unless you want to be committing a crime. You're not taking free play that other people have earned and a host changes the pin and he gives you the cards. That would be illegal as well. That would totally be a crime. It would be fraud. That's not what's going on. What's going on when you talk about multicarding is that the people are using the cards with permission, right? By one means or another, they have the permission of the people whose name the card is in to use the cards. And they're not going in there with this person's ID or anything like that. That would be impersonation. That would also be a crime. They're using, the only thing that multi-carders are violating in general terms is the casino's terms and conditions that say that free play is not transferable and nobody except for you is supposed to use the card. But you can look at state after state after state and you're not going to find anybody being prosecuted for multi-carding because it's not a crime.
So let me ask you this question, and feel free to not answer it. I don't mean to force this out. But one of the things I said, and this is actually the thing I thought you were going to correct me on, is that one of the tricks with multi-carding is removing one card at a specific time and inserting another into the machine. So it's not just like you sit down and have a complete session with one card, then you sit down and have a complete session with another card, that there is sort of a strategic way to change the cards. Do you have any comment on that?
I'm not going to go into specific details. I do know that there are plays where that's been done. And the main reason I'm not going to, the main reason that I use the video poker example specifically is because that's something that I've personally done. So this would all be secondhand information that you're getting into. There are certain specific situations, highly specific ways that the casino markets their offers, that's something that you would want to do. But generally speaking, no, that's not what happens. You just go in with a, quote, clean card and you play it straight up.
Okay. So
I would say 9 times out of 10, that's what you do. You go in with a clean card, never been used before. You do the first day theoretical loss that generates the offers. Now, a few casinos, I will say this much, a few casinos are based on actual loss. So there are situations where you would want a card to lose money, or you would want to make a card look like it lost more money than you actually lost, if you even lost at all. And there are certain ways of doing that. But again, that's something I'm not going to go into the specifics of. I don't mind making a few enemies. I'm not trying to get killed. They wouldn't actually kill me, probably.
I'm gonna ask you another question that you could feel free to not answer, because I mean, it's interesting for the viewers to actually have you just say what you just said. If you were to name a general region of the country, and I'm not going to ask you to name a specific casino, but is there a part of the country where this sort of play tends to go on more often or somehow more lucrative than other parts of the country?
I'm not going to answer the question quite that specifically. What I will say is this: the areas of the country where the high dollar amounts are actually being done tend to be areas with a high degree of casino competition, and also competition for tourist type people. And I mean, there's a clear reason for that, right? The more competition you have when it comes to neighboring casinos or casinos that are closer to you within the region, or if you're near a region that has a high concentration of casinos, the better your offers are going to need to be in order to attract the players, right? So the types of numbers that you're seeing in those particular areas, you would never see that in the area that I work. And also, I don't really multi-card that often anyway.
So
personally.
In particular, would you say that Las Vegas is an area where this multi-carding is a feasible strategy?
I've been told no, surprisingly, not so much in Vegas, although there are websites, and Wizard of Vegas isn't so much one of them, that a particular poster, who I don't know if he'd want to be named or not.
I know who you mean, and let's not name him.
Yeah, okay, so we won't name him, but he's gone into some specifics on Vegas numbers. Although from reading his post, the one thing that I'm made to understand about Vegas is it sounds like he maintains ADT there. So the expected loss versus the expected profits from the offers that he's getting, you know, even with having to maintain the ADT makes it worth it, right? But generally speaking, elsewhere, that's not how you would do it. You would generate a high degree of ADT, and if you would have to play anything at all, you would play the lowest amount possible that's going to prevent the card from getting killed. Okay. Which is where the casino cancels offers that they've already extended you. That's what a card getting killed means. So they say, nope, no more mail for you.
Let me go on to a slightly different area of machine advantage play. Do you know what this thing called vulturing is? And could you explain it?
Yeah, vulturing, I mean, that's the primary thing that I do when it comes to machine advantage play. And if I had to explain vulturing to somebody who didn't really understand it, you ever talk to slot machine players who are negative expectation players and they say, oh, but I know when the machine's going to win. We actually know when the machine is more likely to win. Give you an example just because it's been written about on Wizard of Odds. You could take a game like Golden Egypt, right? And the way the Golden Egypt works is you have these two spots above each of the 5 reels that collect coins. And once a particular spot, a particular reel has collected 2 coins, that reel is going to be wild for the next 2 spins, right? So let's start with a baseline case where you know you absolutely have an advantage. Take any 2 of the first 3 reels that you already know the next spin is going to be wild on both of those reels. You literally can't lose. You can only win. And so if you're not going to do a full analysis, and you don't, like usually you'll take a sample size of 500 spins, see what kind of assumptions you can make from there. But at an absolute minimum case, you know that if 2 of the reels are going to be wild for the next spin, you literally can't lose. So some people will take a machine like that and start more aggressively. Some will start less aggressively. And you add, if you're a person like me that you start less aggressively, you slowly add, you say, well, I've done X number of plays on this machine in this sort of machine state, and I'm 30% ahead on my money on my coin in. I think I could get a little more aggressive and see if, you know, this particular configuration seems to be an advantage. And you go from there.
So what you're doing then is walking around the casino looking for these Golden Egypt machines that have been abandoned in a state that you can see as a profitable state for you.
That's absolutely right. And it's not just Golden Egypt. There are other machines that have the same kind of concept going on. There's a machine that has a meter, and when the meter hits 500, I'm not going to say what it is because it is astoundingly profitable, but hard to find if it exists at all anymore. So you need to know where on the meter do you start playing.
So you're talking now about must hit by progressives, right?
No. No. Well, I mean, it's not exactly a must hit. Okay, so there's a machine that if a particular symbol shows up on any of the reels, now if you get 3 of them, you go to free games immediately. But if a particular symbol shows up on any of the reels, it adds, we'll call them points. When the points hit 500, you go to free games. Now, the key to this machine is every time you take a spin and none of those symbols show up, you lose points. So the key is finding the profitable point where you can start playing and knowing when it drops below this number, I don't want to play this machine anymore because I'm behind on. Yeah. Now, when you talk about
this one's not available anymore, this is generally not available.
Generally not available. Okay. I don't know if this particular game that I'm referencing exists anywhere anymore, but it probably does. And just in case, that's why I'm not going to name it, because this is a play that if you knew about this play, it was an absolute gold mine. I mean, it was delicious. I think it existed at this casino nearest me for something like 6 months, which I was surprised it lasted that long.
So, just as kind of a general question, we hear about blackjack players and we think about movies like 21 or the MIT teams, the church team. So we have this sort of impression of what the community of blackjack players is like. Surely there is a community of advantage slot players and video poker players. What is that community like? Can you, describe what those people are like?
Well, the most well-known professional video poker player that actually, publicizes himself and writes about it, of course, is Bob Dancer. But what I would say is that the slot AP community is kind of segmented. You can find us on various message boards. Some people say even more about it than I do in terms of specifics and are willing to go into those kind of specifics. Some people say almost nothing about any of it, and borderline resents anybody who does say anything about it. That's why I said, I'm going to make some enemies with this one.
Yeah, you're not. No, but
yeah, I am. But trust me, I'll get a talking to from some people behind the scenes. I promise you that.
Okay.
I would say if I had to describe the slot AP community, if I had to use one word, that word would be secretive. We tend not to want people to know what we're doing. And the reason why is because it's relatively easy to do compared to other things. You had mentioned must hit by free games. I don't really have too many of those, but I know the concept. I don't have too many of those readily available to me. But the concept of that's no different than a must hit by progressive. Actually a little harder than a must hit by progressive, because you have to determine average value of the free games. You have to do your best to determine expected loss. And I don't know if we do a lot of guessing, but table games advantage players do a lot of guessing to a certain degree, right?
Yes, absolutely. As a table game player, when you say guessing, I'm thinking about times that I hole carded 3-card poker and I would see a flash of paint or color go by, or I would see something that looked like an ace and wonder whether it was a 4 or an ace. And, taking a guess, there's a science to it to minimize, your losses, but there are times that you make a guess, right? And you have to evaluate both of your choices and minimize losses. And that's just, part of being an advantaged player. But let's just move on to a little bit more about the community. So my understanding is that for some sorts of machine advantage play, there are actually like syndicates, there are teams, there are sort of roving gangs that go around, and these gangs know each other and compete against each other. And, in certain parts of the country,
right,
there's almost nothing available because the gangs are everywhere all the time.
I don't even know how many of them are gangs rather than, solo guys who are willing to take very little value. Like if you look at the types of machines you can vulture, you go to Atlantic City, I have 2 words for you: good luck. Finding any plays. Whereas once upon a time, it's not as good now as it was, especially with COVID, because you have 50% occupancy, which the casinos aren't even hitting anyway, right? You have half of the machines shut off, so it's not as good as it once was. But I go back to 3 or 4 years ago, once upon a time, you could walk into a casino that was near me 3 times a day, spend an hour or less, an hour absolute max, in there each time and just vulture. And your daily expectation for, even if you count time in transit, 4.5 hours work was about $100. And that's a pretty decent little hourly. Like, it's not great. You're not going to retire on it. Me personally, I wouldn't do that as my sole and only source of income. But, you could walk in and get $50 in value in vulture plays pretty routinely. And I personally, I wouldn't do it any other way. It wouldn't be worth my time. If you look at a place like Atlantic City trying to vulture there, I think it's pretty damn near hopeless, if you don't mind the language. And I wouldn't do it. I would have to find a different form of advantage play to do. Perhaps multicarding, wink, wink. If I wanted to do anything out there at all. Although the one thing I will say, without getting into too many specifics, is that if you are in New Jersey or Pennsylvania, I strongly encourage you to take a look at the legal commercial online casinos in those states. And
interesting advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to give any specific casino names away, but take a look at them. Maybe research some of my articles, and you know, see a little bit of the math behind it. But it's even easier than some of the online casinos I've written about in previous articles. These are like the times of old out here. These are like the late 90s, early 2000s with very low playthrough. So
here's a question. You know, if somebody wanted to be a blackjack player or any type of advantage player, you know, there's my book, there's many other books and resources out there that talk about all the different card games. If somebody wanted to be an advantage slot player, an advantage video poker player, you know, somebody watching this is saying to themselves, hey, I would like to try this or do this, and I don't know anything. Where would you suggest they start? What is the, you know, how do they get going doing this kind of advantage play?
I mean, it's going to take work, and you're going to need to scour, you know, resources like the Wizard of Vegas forums, other forums, maybe look into some of my articles. You know, you're going to have to do that, and you're going to get your information in bits and pieces because, again, very secretive. The last thing that we want is competition.
So there's no resource out there. You can't go to a bookstore or, you know, find a website, you know, like AP Heat that's like, hey, here's how you beat all the slot machines. You know, these things don't exist for machine play.
Maybe there's a website like that. I'm not aware of it. If there is, I'm not going to categorically say that there's not. Excuse me. When it comes to books and things of that nature, the one thing that I can say is, unlike blackjack card counting, you know, everybody knows the high-low card counting system, right? There's very little disagreement or discrepancy. The one thing that I'll say when it comes to slot advantage play, you're going to find more misinformation than you find good information. And if I could give one tip to people out there who wanted to try it, number one, unless you have a huge bankroll and you're going to do like multicarding, don't expect to make a lot of money. You're not going to. You know, maybe if you're very good and you're very dedicated and you want to spend a lot of time in casinos and you want to vulture and go for progressives and you can find an area where there's not a metric crap ton of competition, you can maybe get in the mid 5 figures. If you're one of the very best, maybe you can get in the very, very, very low 6 figures.
Yeah.
But number two, you're not going to wake up tomorrow, or you're not going to get into like blackjack card counting, which you have to be extremely well bankrolled for that, as you know. So I think when it comes to slot advantage play, the one advantage you have working for you, if you want to do that, is if you're going to just vulture and play progressives, I don't think the bankroll barrier to entry is as bad as it is with blackjack card counting.
So is there one piece of advice you'd like to give to prospective advantage players right now about not losing all their money?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I would say is I see a lot of people in the casinos that are kind of competition, and even on like the PA skill games, which right now are kind of my preferred thing because there's literally zero variance on those. You know exactly how much. Well, you might have a winner followed by a winner, so you're going to win even more than you thought you were going to win. So zero variance, love it. Good times. But the one piece of advice I would want to give is that I do see a lot of people in casinos that know some plays, maybe even know all the plays for that particular casino. But then they can't help it. They go and they sit down at the tables. They don't know how to advantage play tables. They go to the electronic roulette. We call that having a hole, right? And so the one piece of advice that I would want to give to all your viewers and any potential viewers out there is, you know, if you have holes and you find yourself going into the casino and winning money, but then losing it all doing negative expectation gambling, I would just, if I were you, take a minute to seriously evaluate whether or not you should be, and if so, how much time should you really be spending in the casinos? Because the one thing, and maybe it doesn't behoove me considering, you know, the main financial inflow of our websites is, you know, the online casinos that we advertise for, right? But I don't, compulsive gambling's not something that I want to see. I don't want to see habitual gambling. And I see so many people that know these machine plays or even profess to be advantage players that the advantage play is just a mechanism that enables them to spend more time in the casinos and enables them to be there longer and do more negative expectation gambling before they bust out. If you see that in yourself, and I say this with all due respect to you, the viewer, you want to give some serious consideration to maybe just staying the hell out of casinos entirely. I'm just saying that as somebody that cares about you.
You know, that has been my mission, even though I work for the casino industry, is educating gamblers and letting them, to the best I can, let them know they're losing, you know,
Yep.
and don't be deluded that you're winning when you're losing. All right, Brandon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. This is Elliot Jacobson. See you later.